Welcome to Breaking the Lines podcast. I'm Arlen.
I'm Akeem, and this is a Premier League podcast.
Match week 11.
Yes, sir.
Not a great match week, but I'm sure you enjoyed it. You had people dropping points everywhere around you.
A great match week, man. Some entertaining, not so entertaining, but from the haters' point of view, some great match, and also my team won, so I can't complain about this weekend at all.
Absolutely, some great hate watches. Well, I guess we'll start with the sort of big game, right? Spurs at home to United, 2-2. Final result there. Decent point, I think, for both sides, given sort of what they've been dealing with lately. United with that draw last week, and then Spurs with the horrific performance against your men last time out. Did you get a chance to watch this one?
Yeah, I was up bright and early ready to watch this one, actually. So this was a good one for me. I wouldn't say it was an entertaining game, but I was able to watch this game. Lots of thoughts on this game, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched it as well, and I thought Spurs were horrible in the first half, if I'm being honest. Not that United looked great, but just slightly better than them. And then Mbeumo with I think probably the shortest man on the pitch with the header, which
Didn't even have to jump.
Yeah, didn't even have to jump for. So interesting there, 1-0 at halftime, and then United didn't come out for the second half, sort of similar to that Forrest game last week. And Spurs get 2 goals, albeit late on, but they were having some chances throughout that second half. And then Dyche with the far post header off. I think it was a corner, right?
Yeah, corner or set piece. I can't remember the specific play, but I know it was a last minute because Richarlison needs to just stop taking his shirt off. My man jinxes his team every time he takes his shirt off. So yeah, it was either a set piece or a corner kick. Like you said, it wasn't from my point of view. It was a game of two halves as well. But I think Spurs couldn't be any worse than they were in the first half, to be honest with you. So they had no choice watching that first half. And I'm watching the second half, and like we just said, Richarlison taking his shirt off. It's funny. I literally typed it out because on Monday when you texted me again, it was in my text, but I didn't text it because I had the feeling I was going to text you how bad Richarlison was playing. But I was like, he's going to score. Watch him come and score, because I think even in the second half, Spurs was better, but I think that brother gave away the ball so many times. Simmons, one that we criticized the week before, was probably their only shining light going forward and not giving the ball away and stuff like that. And then they took him off. But yeah, I was just about to tell you how bad Richarlison was playing. And I think it shows in his celebration because, he got that nick of the one goal, think it was the winner, and all gloomy for him. But yeah, I think, it was a hard watch in my opinion. I was more happy for United. I think United overall wasn't great, but just edged it as the better team overall in the game in full. But I think Spurs was a lot better. Like I said, couldn't be any worse than they were in the first half.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think if you had to pick a winner based off of the performances, I think United probably edged Spurs. But I think a draw, when you look at the full game, is probably a fair result. Especially United going down. Richarlison scored, and then at a time, I think it was 90+1. So, when that goal went in, I thought United surely lost it. And they were playing with 10 men. Joshua came off with that injury, and they had no subs left. I didn't see them, coming away with anything at that point. And then Dyche literally in the last second of stoppage time off that set piece or corner or whatever it was. I think it's interesting. I don't think, from United's point of view, I don't think it's a bad result, right? Because they're still having, I think this is their 5th game without a loss. So some improvement there in terms of results, but performance-wise, I feel like you still want to see a little bit more from them. And then on Spurs' side, I'm just not really sure what to make of Spurs, if I'm being honest. I think in the beginning of the season, they started the season off decently, and they've kind of gone a little bit downhill since, especially their home form is horrific. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I guess we'll see how they bounce back after the international break, but definitely an interesting one to watch there.
Yeah, it's worrying times for them, especially with that home form. I think it's 2 wins since the start of the season, and this is match week 11. If I'm not wrong, I'd have to double check my facts there. But yeah, it's a little bit worrying for them, isn't it? Like you said, in that first half, or we talked about, just they couldn't offer, they didn't offer anything to reach back onto the Chelsea game. And we know, obviously, Thomas Frank is a great manager. We saw what he did at Brentford. I think the big step up when you go to these big teams, so these managers, the expectations, the football that the fans also want to see, and just adapting to the demands of the club. And I don't know if he will or will not figure it out. I've seen what he's done at Brentford, but like I just said, I think those always kind of separate those big manager and the managers that just stay, with those, what you call, I don't want to be disrespectful, but the lesser fortunate clubs. So yeah, I think it's just, let's see how it goes as the season goes. Obviously they're a lot better than the 22 games that they lost last season, but I think the football is just not where the fans want it to be. I watched them in the Chelsea game previously. I've been watching them since the start of the season, obviously. And just in the last two performances, and like we said, especially that first 45 against, they offered nothing against Chelsea, and first 45, they offered nothing against United. They had no choice going into halftime, losing the game in the second half. So it was kind of forced on them to attack. But, at home, I think for these big clubs, it will take Frank a little bit of time to get adapted, I think. Let's see how he does, because I honestly don't know, because I don't know enough about him at a big club or any club enough to know if he's going to fix it or not and what Tottenham requirements are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think it's interesting. I mean, we've seen it plenty of times in Premier League, but anytime you have sort of, a manager that's performing well at, a club who's lower in the table go to a big club, it's interesting to see how they adapt, right? Because obviously there's a lot more pressure, a lot more expectations. And no disrespect to Brentford, but I mean, Spurs in the Champions League, obviously, like you mentioned, there are 22 losses last year, but, they expect more at Spurs, right? Like any big or bigger team. So it's interesting to see kind of how he adapts to that. And I agree with you. I'm watching sort of the same thing and interested to see how they end the season. And I think only then we can really judge him. I mean, we've had a lot of examples of this, like David Moyes coming to United after Ferguson left, and then obviously that didn't go well for him. I don't even think he lasted a full season. And then your manager, the guy that came from Brighton, Graham Potter, obviously didn't work out for him. So we've had a couple examples of it. There's a lot more, but we'll see. Jury's still out. I think he's a good manager. And I think that, given time and given the opportunity and freedom to kind of do what he wants, I think, he can be successful. And what successful is for Spurs, I don't necessarily know. I mean, I can tell you as an Arsenal fan, I think successful for them would be, finishing in the Champions League, right? I don't think that they can expect to win a title in the next couple years, based off of their recent sort of form and history. But, you never know. I mean, what is it? 3, 4 years ago, Arsenal hadn't been in the Champions League for 14 years or 12 years, something like that. And next season you come out and you kind of challenge for a title. So you don't know how kind of it works from season to season. But I think, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes, and I mean, definitely we'll give him a rating at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. We just have to give it time. Like we said, don't know enough about. For us, it's not our club, so you can't put the expectation on what they should want. So only time will tell, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that moves us to the next round of games on Saturday morning, and Everton Fulham. This was one that, I think kind of a shock, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I don't think it's much of a shock. If you look at it right now, I'm just going the base on FPL. I went on Europe this weekend and I saw you have Ndidi in there. So I have Grealish. A couple of my friends have Drewsby Hall. So I think based on the start of the season, we all like Everton starts of the season, and we've been worried about Fulham. So I don't think it's anything as a shock. Obviously, we want to see kind of like the form that Villa is on at the moment to kind of Fulham to turn it around. But we spoke about their transfer this summer and stuff that happened. So I don't think it's much of a shock to me, and especially it being at home to Everton. The only disappointment I have was, like I said, really not getting on the score sheet for my fantasy. But yeah, when looking towards the game this weekend, I'm not sure what my prediction was, but I don't think it's much of a shock to me.
Yeah, you actually had Everton to win 2-1. I had a
Yeah.
draw in this one, 2-2. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Fulham, like we've said it in the past. I mean, they've had a couple of good years in the league, and I just feel like, week by week we're seeing kind of the effects of them not spending to build on
Hmm.
that. I think that, if they really took some time in the market to do some good recruiting and spend some money, I think that they would have probably had a little bit better start, maybe a few more points. But, on 11 points, close to the bottom there. So we'll see how that goes. I don't anticipate them to be kind of dragged into a relegation fight, but you never know, right?
Yeah, I think all the clubs would say, no doubt, based on what you said, if we all could spend a little bit more money, it'd just be a bit easier for all of them. So, yeah, no doubt. I think it's, like I said, not something surprising to me, especially at the start of the season. I think Everton has a very solid team. From front to back. And, David Moyes back, almost of what he would probably call home. Nothing surprising, especially since it's been so worrying for Fulham. And I think it's kind of, we see that cycle. Every so often, it's not every year, I would say, but we see the cycle. Like Sunderland's doing amazing. We talk about them in a second. But maybe it's their time now to come and establish himself for a couple of years while Fulham go down. It happens, like you said. If for us, we're fortunate because we support the big teams and our club. We don't have to worry about relegation and stuff like that. But the premise, it kind of gives you that cycle of every couple of years. Those solid teams. Because Sunderland was an established team in the Premier League, so it's not something surprising to see them back doing well. So maybe Fulham need that rebuild just to go back down or whatever it is. I don't know what the case might be, but they're just going through that period at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that moves us to two teams who are in a kind of relegation scrap early on and probably will continue the rest of the year. West Ham, Burnley, and a big 3-2 victory for West Ham. I mean, I think that they needed that, especially over Burnley, who, they're currently sit level on points with 10 points and at West Ham in 18th and Burnley in 17th. And big 3 points for them. I mean, that's what we kind of refer to sometimes as a 6-pointer, right?
Yeah, they needed that. And I mean, being down in the game as well, coming back from 1-0, going up to 3-1, that conceding that 90 plus stoppage time goal. I think it's something that they need, just like kind of like what we touched on for United, not going to be a miraculous performance overnight, but just something to give the fans and the club belief as the season goes. And I think, that was definitely one of those results for them. So let's see how they take it into their stride and how they progress in the next couple weeks.
Absolutely. Burnley's had a tough go of it. I mean, they started the season seemed well, three losses in their last five, two wins. So we'll see how they progress too. Fleming on the score sheet again. I think he has a few goals this season. I was actually thinking
Yeah.
about possibly bringing him into the fantasy as like a third choice, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think kind of somewhere where, like we said, we are not the fans of these clubs, so it's very hard to put the expectation. In my opinion, I think kind of where Burnley expect to be. Like you said, two wins in the last five, but again, it's Burnley that just came up. We just got newly promoted, so I'm not sure what the expectations are. But staying in the Premier League, I'm sure is the main thing, and not going to win all 38 games as we know. So yeah, just
Yeah.
about right where they would want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's a scrap down there, so whatever you can get, is great.
Yeah.
And West Ham building off that victory to Newcastle, which is, was a huge victory for them. And then, winning against Burnley, so, getting some points. It's tight down there at the bottom. West Ham sit on 10 points, Burnley 10, 11, Fulham 11, Newcastle on 12, which is a shock. We'll talk about them in a little bit, but I mean, it's still very, very early days. Typically teams that struggle don't miraculously change it. It doesn't really happen in the Premier League. So we'll see kind of how that develops. We can move on
Yeah.
to my men conceding 2 goals away to
Yes, sir.
Sunderland. It's funny. I'll tell you this. I was more upset that we conceded 2 goals than I was that we drew. Like I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the fans would agree with you as well.
Yeah, I was.
Just from what's been going on in the last 10 weeks. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I'm not gonna I think that there was some questionable refereeing decisions, but I'm not even gonna blame those for us conceding 2 goals and dropping 2 points, just because I feel like we didn't perform well, right? I feel like, we created some chances, as they had a couple of good looks, just, kind of straight at the goalkeeper. But I just didn't think we played well. And I don't know if maybe that's because we didn't have the focal point up top, Gorkors was out. Um, I don't know if maybe that had something to do with it or maybe just fatigue or what it was, but we didn't really look like we've looked like, this season so far.
I think, yeah, I could agree. The first half wasn't the best. I think in the second half, you guys were a lot more, as even watching it and see kind of what fans have been asking for. I don't know if it's every fan, but in the second half, they definitely went out and played a bit more because everyone can talk about how a bit more conservative they've been since the start of the season. But I don't necessarily look at it like that. I think for me, seeing it now from the neutral point of view, and especially just playing and losing to Sunderland a few weeks ago, they're just a well coached team in my opinion with some physical players. Obviously, we talk about the style change in the Premier League. And when Pep came, it was very technical, moving the ball around, moving players around. And then we've seen now the long throws, set pieces, and stuff like that are back in. I think for Sunderland, they're just a very well coached team that can cause anyone problems on the day. To be honest, as we've seen to start the season, they're not up where they are for no reason. And I mean, we've seen that in that game versus Arsenal. So yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. Obviously, you're not going to play well for 38 games in the season, and it defines champions. And when you pick up the points, maybe we'll look back at the end of the season that it was a defining point for Arsenal or not. So it's something to reflect on. But I think they have to give credit to Sunderland based on what that game and just the start of the season as well, about how well coached they are and just a good team as well. So it's a good thing. It was a good thing for me to see. It was also a good thing, I think, for the Premier League to see that Arsenal could concede. Not that, they didn't believe, but it was just a good thing for the rest of the teams to see that Arsenal can concede.
Yeah, and I'd like to say as well, kind of piggybacking off that, I've watched Sunderland a few times this year actually, and they've impressed me. And honestly, they made it very difficult for Arsenal in every phase of the game. Not just the low block, but even kind of putting pressure at times, right? Especially, I think their first goal came off of a free kick, which was in their half, and just a big physical presence, winning the ball and it falling to, the Arsenal Academy kid, graduate Ballard, and good finish from him, put them 1-0 up. And then in the last 90 plus 4, I think it was, just again, kind of just causing havoc, right? And that's kind of what they've done all season, right? They have a good defense. I think they have a good goalkeeper. Midfield is set up well, made it difficult for us. On Arsenal side, I thought Saka had a good goal, right foot finish, kind of near post, caught the keeper out. Trossard had a brilliant long range, not long range, but like top of the box sort of strike. And I'll be honest with you, we were winning 2-1 going into added time, and I felt like we got away with one because, like I said, I think that the performance wasn't great in terms of, we did have a little bit more attacking play, but I think that, we afforded Sunderland a little bit too much for them going forward, especially towards the end. I mean, the last like 10 minutes it almost felt like we were hanging on. You know what I mean? Like we were really, really deep.
Yeah, it really was.
And I felt that, if we can get away with it, then it's definitely one that we're fortunate on just because of how deep we were in that last 10 minutes. I mean, I know Sunderland's chasing a goal and we're away to them, but I would have liked us to push up a little bit defensively at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, I think that's a Premier League. You made a great point that maybe I didn't touch on a bit earlier. Yeah, man, Sunderland is very well coached team. I think last week as well, when we lost to them, I tried to refrain from using as just a kind of like, because a lot of teams, I would say nowadays, it's easy for them to kind of be defensive and sit behind the ball, especially teams like that. But you made a great point of where you said, like, you can't even blame Sunderland because I saw the same thing in the Chelsea game. They play good offensive football, but they also know how to defend and set everybody in the box. And I saw that against Chelsea as well. That's why I couldn't even blame them because I felt, in the start of the game, like you said, they came out pressing and they came out trying to win the game, going for every second ball, every 50-50, stuff like that. And then when they had the lead, you could see them, not the lead necessarily, but when they had a result, you could see them kind of being a little bit more sound. So I think it's just a smart way of playing. Obviously, every team would want to be in that sense, but you have to give credit for them because, I've seen it many a times. We've seen it where the games obviously starts at 0-0 and teams just come out and they never leave their half. So yeah, I think it's credit to them, and obviously, like they'll feel as if they deserve what's been going on for them to start the season. It was a great game from their point of view. Arsenal didn't play their best, but you don't expect them to play their best. It's these games are if you can't win it, you don't lose it basically.
Yeah, and just touching on Sunderland a little bit, they're sitting in fourth place on 19 points, which is I think phenomenal for them, right? Being a newly promoted team, we haven't seen that in a while in the Premier League,
Hmm.
coming in and performing that well. So, they're more than halfway to safety. So I think, I don't think anyone's, last couple weeks would have said that they would have been dragged down, but they're in a very good spot. I don't know if they'll finish in fourth place, but I think that they'll definitely be in the Premier League next season. Like you said, well-coached team. I think they've added some good physical players over the summer, kind of changed that team around. So we'll see kind of how they go. I'm thoroughly impressed by them. And then Arsenal side of things, I think this international break kind of comes at a great time for them, just because you drop points, which is, kind of sucks, but gives you some time to reset and kind of, get some of these players that are out injured back and hopefully get to full fitness after the international break and kind of see where you can build on from that.
Yeah, I think so, especially, like you said, dropping points. It's not a massive thing. They didn't lose the game, so I don't think it's as big, but it would be nice for them to create that gap, especially so early. But,
Yeah.
a chance for them to revisit the drawing board and go again after the international break.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that moves us to Chelsea Wolves, and this was I actually predicted 3-0 in this game. So we got one on the prediction score. I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch this game.
Hmm.
I was just upset after that Arsenal game, and I was like, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
relax a little bit, spend some time with the family and whatnot. It was on. We had it on the TV, but I wasn't really focused on it or paying attention to it. And then I walked away, and I came back, and it was halftime, and it was 0-0. And I was just thinking, I was like, what could possibly be going on, And I saw. I don't know if I remember this correctly, but I think they were booed off at halftime. Is that true?
We might have, yes, yes, I believe so, because it was a very hard watch in the first half, mate. Like, Wolves weren't good, just Enzo came out after and saying the only thing happened, or he separates a half with, is that we scored in the second half and we didn't in the first. But man, I watched the game and it was just a tough watch in the first. It's just not connecting those other things. Everything seemed a bit off. And I think also like we touched on with Tottenham earlier, like the expectations around the team has changed. So fans are expecting them to win, but we spoke about it many times. It's still kids, still young boys on the field. So, I think like you said, everybody was kind of expecting to be up by 3-0 or at least winning at halftime. And they weren't. So the second half was a lot better than the first, when they got the goals, that early goal in the second half to help open up the space and stuff. But yeah, in the first half, they were booed, I believe, because it wasn't anything where Wolves were better. It was just a hard watch. We were placing passes, not getting in shots off. Just, yeah, it was just a very difficult, kind of a boring game. Yeah, the second half, three good goals. Yeah, that Esteval kid for us is a light. Yeah, I think besides that, it was, professional victory, and so played a really good game. Garnacho was top on the day as well, but yeah, very tough first 45 minutes, I would say.
Yeah, I think great. I mean, when you look at the result, I think it's a great result. Like I said, I didn't really watch the game, so I don't really know too much what happened. I'm happy I didn't end up using the triple captain on Enzo, although he was
Yeah,
my captain this week. But I mean, great result. Moves Chelsea up to third place. I think they're sitting on 20 points.
yeah, 20 points, 2 points behind City. And how much are you guys on?
We're on 26, so 6 points behind
6 points,
Arsenal.
yeah.
I think for Chelsea, from my point of view at least, I think their sort of goal for this year would be to finish in that top four. So I think that's, they're in a good position for it. Hopefully for them, they build off of that. They've created, and it's kind of tight up there at the top. I mean, there's like 1, 2, 3 points separating everyone. But, building sort of like you said, a gap. Whether it be for a title race or for a top four or even like even relegation. I think building a gap early on is important, right? Because you don't know what happens in the run-ins. Good result for them. 20 points out of 11. I don't know if you'd say. I mean, I'll ask you since you say you're a Chelsea fan. Would you say that's successful in the first 11 games for them before the season? Was that your expectation, or would you kind of hope that they would be a little bit further along?
I think for us, it's not necessarily success or failure. It just sums our season up because we will show you. Like you just talked about Wolves and we beat Spurs away, also beat Liverpool, but then we've lost to Sunderland. We've dropped points to Crystal Palace. So I think if you were to tell opponents, we lost to United with the head loss at getting the red card in the first 5 minutes. But if you were to tell me in the perspective of that, we were going to be at least challenging some of those teams and beating some of those teams at least. At the start of the season, I'd be happy. But then also to know that we've dropped points against, I mean, a well-coached Sunderland team that we talked about. And Crystal Palace, another team. I think it's a bit 50-50. I just want to see them grow as the season goes. Like, I think it's kind of hurtful to know that we could have could have beaten Sunderland, probably would have been on 23. You'd have made it a bit more interesting, but then Arsenal probably would have won. So I'm kind of just taking it. Like I said, I don't expect us to be title challengers. So for me, it was never a set expectation. I want us to finish top four for sure. But as this season goes as well, it seems interesting so far. Liverpool's not doing so well, especially in the last couple of games. So for me, I just want to see us, it would be nice to be in and amongst that place, especially with Liverpool not doing well right now. And when you consider, like we said, 6 points off Arsenal and the points drop. So let's see. I don't have an expectation for them, but let's see how the season goes, and I'll judge it based on, the results and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that moves us into Sunday's games, and I don't remember what the schedule was for these games, but the first one we're gonna touch base on was the Villa Bournemouth game.
You sell it? You selling Semenyo?
I don't know. I mean, I get one transfer a week, so I might have already used that. But man, I don't think anyone, I don't even think Villa fans would have told you before the game that they're going to
No,
be Bournemouth 4-0. So
I don't think anyone expected that.
insane result. I think probably the craziest, maybe you can, I think this is even crazier than the City game, to be honest, because I mean, I think a lot of people probably thought that that City game was going to go towards City. I think you even predicted 3-1 for it. So I don't know, man. Crazy result, 4-0. But Villa's been, besides that blimp to Liverpool, they've kind of turned around
I picked it
their
up.
early, yeah, their early season kind of woes. So great result for them. Moves them into sixth place on 18 points. Like I said, that top sort of, you know, what is it? 10, top maybe 7, 8 places are very tight, right? So,
Yeah.
um, you
There's
know,
like 6 places separated by like 2 points, I believe, at the moment.
yeah, I mean, third, Chelsea in third on 20 points, and then Bournemouth in ninth on 18 points.
Yeah.
Two, you
So,
know, that's gonna
yeah,
change next match week for sure. That whole sort of group of teams and where they are. And then, obviously even below that, I mean, you have Crystal Palace in 10th on 17, so a victory could literally bring them up to third place on 20 points, right? So you never know kind of how that's going to change, and I think that there will be more separation as the season goes on. It's early and we have a small sample size to kind of look at, but good victory for Villa. I don't know, I didn't really catch this one, but 4 goals and 4 different goal scorers. I think the only thing, I don't even know if Watkins played in this game, but I think that's the only probably worry for Villa is Watkins is not scoring at the moment. And I think, Villa and England too, to be honest.
he
But,
played.
he played?
He played. He wasn't as good. It wasn't a 4-0 performance, in my opinion. It didn't look a 4-0 performance. And I mean, Watkins got the ball a couple of times and just didn't look himself, to be honest. But, they got the goals and they went from there. But yeah, it wasn't a 4-0. So I think it's easy to look from the eye and say, Watkins, it's worrying for him. But it wasn't a 4-0 performance as well. He also made mistakes. So I
Yeah.
think it's a lot of things that happened in that game that
Yeah.
turned out to be that way.
Well, I mean, I think looking at the stats, like possession was pretty close, 52 to 48. The expected goals is 1.7 for Villa and 1.6 for Bournemouth, and Villa got 4 goals from that, and Bournemouth got nothing. And I think Martinez was the man of the match too, right?
Yeah, you know what's funny in that game is I watched that game and I think it was one of those games just like the Arsenal game where we spoke a bit about the momentum switched because I remember it was 0-0 and I think Bournemouth had a free kick and I forgot who it was. It could have been Smith or someone. I don't remember who took it, but it was shooting range, I remember, just top of the box, and it was Semenyo and someone else on the team discussing who to take it. And I'm hoping, we both have Semenyo, so I'm hoping that Semenyo gets to take it and probably smash it in. And I don't know, I think someone on the team, I forgot the name. I don't know if it was Clark or who it was, but someone else took the kick and it was just a horrible free kick. And within the span of 2 minutes, Villa went on the other hand and probably got a bit closer their free kick, or got their free kick and scored. And you could just tell the momentum switch in the game because it wasn't like I said, it wasn't feeling as if it was, anything crazy. It was, if Bournemouth had scored that first goal, I think it would have been a different game, obviously. But yeah, it was one of those where it just switched, and I think Bournemouth head just kind of went down. And the second and third and fourth goal obviously came, but it was one of those for sure. I think Semenyo probably goes home talking to that guy about how he didn't get the free kick. So yeah, but it was one of those.
All right. Well, we'll see kind of how Bournemouth bounces back. I mean, they had a very good start, and now they've dropped down a little bit. But moving on to another game that I don't think we thought that was gonna go the way it did. Brentford Newcastle, which was it's funny because I actually predicted a 1-0 victory for Brentford, and I think that when we were going over the predictions last week, I don't even know what I was thinking looking at that, but 3-1 for Brentford. And I know, it was sitting 1-1 when Dan Burn got the second yellow card. So, obviously that has something to do with it. But, good result for Brentford. And I think Brentford is one of those kind of sleeper teams this year that, we might have talked about in recent weeks, but I don't think we expected them to be as good as they are just because of, what they lost, the manager and their star players and whatnot.
Yeah, I think yeah, I'm stuck at the moment in between Brentford and Sunderland of just my team of the season so far of how they're doing because I think for Brentford it's just been surprising in terms of considering the manager we talked about it a couple times with the manager loss and the players that they lost as well and just to be doing, pretty decent so far this season. So I think a great win for them, worrying time for Newcastle. But obviously they took the lead. I think it's just been a little bit concerning for them over there in Newcastle. But honestly, I was more happy watching this game, especially Newcastle being one of those we would consider a top four rival. So yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, what Brentford's in 12th place on 16 points, so what is that? 4 points behind third place Chelsea.
yeah, 4 points
You
behind 20.
so I think a decent point return for them.
Are you thinking about adding? You thinking about adding Thiago to your fantasy? He's been scoring some goals.
I actually was looking at that, and I think I have right now. For my strikers, I have Gyökeres, Holland, and Isidore. And I don't know, man. Maybe I don't know what the
Yeah,
prices are looking like, but bringing in Thiago for Isidore, every time I bring in a player that's doing well,
I like
you know,
Isidore. Yeah, I like they don't do well. That's a problem.
yeah,
Yeah, the transfer, the
yeah.
curse. I
So
like Isidore.
I might bring in might get rid of my Arsenal players and bring in some City players, to be honest. See if the
Yeah.
curse kind of takes off. But no, I don't know. We'll see, man. I don't know. I think I made a transfer this week. I don't honestly don't even know who it was. But we'll see kind of as the week progresses and international break. Hopefully it flies by.
Yeah.
But Newcastle, man, 12 points, 11 games. Horrific, horrific start for them. I mean, I think that their goal would have been to finish in the top four and get Champions League football again. And I don't think that that's going to happen.
From the hater point of view, I hope not. From on the podcast and being neutral, it's worrying time for them. But yeah, I mean, yeah, for Newcastle, man, obviously it's kind of, with I forgot what the new name is, but with the financial fair play rule and they can't spend as much as they'd want to, not be in the club that they want to be in the moment. So I think it's kind of just let's see how it goes. Honestly, I think it wasn't anything. It's something that's been like that since the start of the season. They've kind of been worrying here and there. Performance is not the best. I remember Newcastle last season. I remember what I thought of them as just a very well coached team, almost like a multi-time better than Sunderland, but one of those teams that could play kind of very adaptive football where they go long, short, around, or wherever it works. So a little bit worrying this season here. Obviously, losing their striker and other players as well over the summer is not the best, but I don't think it's anything that they can't handle for the season. Will they make top four? I don't know, but I don't think it's anything that's more worrying than that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Well, I guess we can move on and getting close to I think the game that you and I both want to discuss. But not there just yet. Next up, Palace Brighton, a 0-0 draw. I think I don't know if I said this. I definitely thought about it, but in the predictions, but I thought that there was going to be goals in this game. I mean, if I had to pick one game this weekend, I think that I would have looked at this game and said, yeah, there's going to be goals. And 0-0. What I mean, it's just you can't predict anything in the Premier League. You know what I
A,
mean? Like
a
it's
boring, boring, boring game. Nothing to offer, nothing really much. I don't know if I expected goals. I don't know if I expected 0-0 either, but yeah, I think you kind of know what you're getting from Glasner. He's not necessarily like that in every game, I wouldn't say, but you kind of know, the back five, it's difficult to break down. So I think it's one of those, tit for tat game where see who breaks first, and eventually no one did. So 0-0 took them home.
I think it's funny you say, what you're getting from Glasner because apparently he doesn't know what he's getting from his opponents in the Conference League. You know what he's complaining about
Yeah, no,
deep defensive lines and whatnot, but he's one of those. I don't know,
yeah,
man. I think like you said, boring game. I think a point apiece for those two. I don't necessarily think it's a bad result for either side, to be honest. They're kind of
yeah, I don't think,
around, yeah, I think they're kind of around the same, I don't want to say same sort of team, but same expectations for both of those. Kind of around
yeah,
that mid-table, maybe hope to push into a Conference League spot. But I think they take the point and they move on. Maybe Brighton a little bit more so than Palace because they're away. But
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think Brighton, because they're away. I mean, Palace has been in a great run of form as well. So you kind of want them. Thanks to Sarr for giving me a whopping, I think, 1 point. I also picked them up before, thinking that he would do something in that game. Yeah, it was just one of those. But like you said, a point both each, and they move on.
yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can move into Forest Leeds and a 3-1 victory for Sean Dyche's men. Great 3 points for them. And
Dyche ball is back. We thought we were gonna
yes,
be getting 1-0 wins and 2-1s and stuff like that. My guy
he's
rolled it out. It's a 3-1 win.
he must have used his time off, to kind of change his style of play a little bit. But I mean, great 3 points for Forest, and I think that you and I both said, we were impressed with how they played against United too. So it's not that much of a
Yeah,
surprise, right? Because they were pretty attacking against United. They didn't sit back like we expected a Sean Dyche side to sit back.
yeah,
But, what a player Anderson is, man. I think he's a decent little midfielder, and it almost kind of reminds me of kind of Declan Rice in a way that he kind of has that sort of power behind him, you know what I mean? I don't necessarily think he's
yeah.
like a deep lying midfielder, maybe a box to box, but he fights a lot like Declan does. He kind of like
Mhm.
has that engine. I'm sure you're seeing them too, links where United are looking for him and they're valuing at 100 million pounds plus, which I think might be a little bit excessive, but it's hard to find, I think, that type of player profile in the Premier League, let alone the rest of Europe and whatnot. So we'll see kind of, if Forrest can hang on to him, but definitely impressed by him.
Yeah, he's a very good midfielder. There's a couple him and Morton around the league at the moment. Probably two of those, not in the top 16, but we can say some very solid midfielder. But from all of that, what's the crazy part is the biggest takeaway I took from everything that you just said was how we're sitting here actually talking about the players that are good for Forest when, since the start of the season, we even given a chance to do so. Just shows you coaching, right? So yeah, I think it's a great space for Forest, obviously, with the start that they had this season to where they're at right now. So happy for them. Obviously Leeds also have been doing well, so we can't count them out. They've had some good victory since being promoted back to the Prem. So yeah, I think a good performance was good to see. I had Sells as well. He's my goalkeeper for fantasy, so was hoping I could get a clean sheet, but I'll take the 3-1.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't move Forest, but 9 points, a point behind West Ham and Burnley and a couple points behind Fulham and Leeds. So I think that, it's a great result for them. It's another one of those 6 pointers down there at the bottom. So we'll see kind of how Forest build off of that. I'm not sure who they play next. We'll obviously touch it based on it in the predictions, but great 3 points.
Yeah, like you said, I think good for them just to kind of something to grow on and to build on and just build off of,
Yeah.
especially in the last couple games. So good for them. Brings us into the match of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. And, arguably, I think, might have even said it earlier, the result of the week with that Villa Bournemouth game, but 3-0 victory for City, man. I know you predicted 3-1. I was hopeful in a draw, and I think it was nothing more than just being hopeful, to be honest, given
Yeah,
the form of the two
I know the
teams
feeling,
recently.
brother. I know the feeling. See, I know I just watch and I just like the only thing I could see is even people are saying, I'm gonna switch. A couple of my friends are switching, they're hauling out or not captaining. I'm like, the state of that Liverpool defense, and he could have had a couple, he could have
Yeah.
had, but I'm like, the state of that Liverpool defense, I just don't see. And then offensively, there's a couple players, Salah is always Salah, but yeah, Liverpool is worrying times to Liverpool. I don't think I'm a Chelsea fan, and I think they're probably in a better stage or process of where they're what they're working on as a club. But in the past couple seasons, I think it's always known it would be a tough game. Now I don't think teams see them as that fearful team anymore. And it's kind of touched back to like what I said about Arsenal. I think we said it about Gabriel early on the pod, like I think within the first week, but the perception of how people see you is a big thing, especially in the Premier League. And just to give someone hope, like you said, it might not even be anything. Because, Arsenal probably maybe have the best defensive or whatever. The fact of them going game in, game out, and just having a clean sheet kind of put fear into the rest of the league of maybe you won't be able to score against them and stuff. I think we've seen that with Liverpool, especially conceding, like we said, goals to 10 men, not looking so solid going forward, solid, not looking like himself, even when he was scoring. In the league, it's kind of goals that, it's kind of the goal he scored, the last one against Villa was pretty much a giveaway. So I think there's lots and lots of work to do for Liverpool. We'll see. We'll see how Arne Slot handles it. For me, on my perspective, from the hater point of view, I'm loving it, mate, because there's a couple of things like he just went through that first season too much untouched, and I felt like he felt he was the best ever. No, I wouldn't think he feel that way, but he moved in a certain way of where he was too smarter than the league, I feel. He made it seem. So it's good for me to see it. And like I said, it's also good perceptive perspective is a great thing to see. Like now he's losing. How can you switch back and get your team back to winning ways? Because teams are going to look at why you're losing, and now it's going to be even harder than when he was winning because you need to also build that confidence along with a good tactical strategy. So yeah, I think it's a very worrying time for them. I don't know what the season will have for them, but having not
Yeah.
also have a good sample size for Slot, it's kind of up in the air. I mean, he had I wouldn't say easy, obviously last year, 100% deserved the title, but it was kind of no one really challenged him as much as he's getting challenged this year. So it's going to be interesting to see what he's made of.
Yeah, I think, just looking at the game as a whole, I agree with you. I think basically, Liverpool looked the most threatening in the game off their set pieces, which has been, a big controversy and talking point this season. But in open play, I mean, for me at least, they just looked lost. Like they looked like they had no ideas. They misplacing passes, no sort of structure whatsoever. For some reason, Ekatike came off in the second half, and they just looked even worse. They had no focal point, nothing. I mean, it was probably one of the worst games I've seen Liverpool play this year. Just credit to City too. I think City kind of. I was thinking this during the game. City have this way where I don't think any other team in football right now have this where they can kill you with just simple passes in the back. You know what I mean? Like as good as Arsenal are, I don't think they have this kind of attribute that City have where they pass the ball from their center back to their CDM who was Gonzalez I think in this match, and they just it like you can just see them kind of draining energy from the press, and it's like just simple short passes. And I think that as the game went on, Liverpool just didn't create anything, didn't really do anything. There were some talking points in this game, which I think that we will discuss. But I don't know, man. I think just a poor game. Overall from Liverpool. I think it kind of you look outside the league and you see how good Diaz is doing in Bayern, and you kind of start to question that sale a little bit. Question there's naturally, I think we should question their summer at this point, especially given the fact that they're reigning champions. They're defending a title, and they spent the most. They broke the British transfer record twice in one summer. So when you think about that, I mean, I think that comes with expectations, and I don't necessarily think that people have been discussing that enough. And it's you buy the most expensive striker in Premier League history, you buy the most expensive center attacking mid or whatever he is in Premier League history. I think it's worrying times, and I think that we look at that and the performances just they don't make sense. I mean, we haven't seen Isak at all yet, in my opinion. So, maybe that one's a little bit less concerning than the Wirtz one, but Wirtz just doesn't seem like, he knows what he's doing right now. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. But I guess we'll kind of look at the game and analyze it a little bit as it went through. And I think the first thing that was controversial in this game was the penalty. And I'll be honest with you, watching that penalty and then watching some of the penalties that we've had taken away this season from VAR, I couldn't help but just laugh at just because I felt like, it was so minimal contact, and, Arsenal have had clear penalties taken away, which I felt were, clear contact and whatever. But what did you think of the penalty?
I think I see the pen, but the thing is, I don't know, man. I'm not gonna. For me, it's I obviously will, but I think like we've said it too many times, and I've said it. I don't know what's a perm. What when I was coming up, I used to know what's a foul. I honestly don't know what's a foul anymore. You sent me that video this weekend, but we talked about it so many times. I think not just even a penalty, like it's just such a minimal contact. But I think you and I have seen whether it's in the box or not, way more pressured contact than that hasn't been given. So I think that's what you're calling for, the consistency. And now everything is going obviously to the VAR when it's in the box and you get to analyze everything slow motion. But I don't know. I don't necessarily I could see the contact, but the only thing is I'm agreeing with is I just need a consistency. I don't care about if it's a penalty or not because if the contact is soft or not. I just want the same thing to happen on the field if you're going to do that. And I don't think the Prem is doing that. And that I think that's a line where that's a problem I have for sure. Is because if it's a foul in the box, then it should be a foul outside the box. And I have a player like Caicedo. I've seen the physical midfields and stuff like that, and I've just seen a lot of things. Caicedo makes a lot more brash challenge in that where the player is gone. Like the contact is there, but there's more tackles that we see where with more force and everything, and we don't see the contact. So I don't know. I'm kind of struggling. Like I said, I don't know what's a foul anymore from the point of view of watching the game. Regardless, I think City was the better team, so it wasn't one of those that it changed the game. But I get it. I get that point of view. But yeah, I just want it to be if it's a foul in there, can it be a foul outside the box as well? Let's try to find the balance and what is enough contact to get a foul because I've seen contact of where you absolutely stop a player like the video you sent me. So yeah, we just want the consistency and I every level and I think it would be easier, but it's easier said than done, obviously. We've been seeing that since the start of wherever, so it's very difficult
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to put it. I think if you were to ask any fan and they say, "Do you have a problem with this given as a penalty?" I think most people will say, "No, but we wanna see that upheld the rest of the year," right? And I think that's one of the things that creates the greatest controversy. Most people, I'd say, if it's a foul, then we wanna see the foul everywhere else. I think that's just where the league is right now and where the state of refereeing is in the league. And it's weird because I watched the Champions League midweek, and I don't feel there is that much controversy in the Champions League. So I don't understand where the disconnect is with the refereeing in England and across Europe. And that's not to say that there's not questionable decisions across Europe. I think that there is, but it just seems like it's a lot less. It seems like the referees are a lot more confident, a lot more. I don't even want to say
Because
neutral because I don't want to say that the referees pick sides in England, but it seems like in England they referee based off of like I almost want to say player reputation and team reputation and all that. And I
it's a
just
it's a lot of things.
I think that's so wrong. And I think that it's even in the past, I think referees have come out and said that in the past that, we go based off of a player's reputation, which I think is so wrong. You know what I mean? How can you be impartial when you already have a, preconditioned view of a player? So I don't know, man. I penalty was saved, which, I think was a good save by the goalkeeper, minus 2 points on fantasy, which was not great. And then Holland did get a goal in the 29th minute, which I thought was a little bit unlucky for Liverpool, if I'm being honest. I think Konate kind of like flicked it onto his head. But I mean, the presence that he has in that box, we've discussed, numerous times. He's a force of a freak of nature. And
My guy's not unlucky. My guy just dunked on Konate, mate. Ain't no unlucky there. Konate has been having problems since the start of the season. Him and Van Dijk. Well, I don't. It's
yeah,
just Holland. Every goal, when you look at it from the other point of view, there's an issue, right? Arsenal
yeah.
concede until the weekend, you can fix it. So it's easy to say that, but Konate, it's been a problem that he's had. He's never been a consistent defender. I know Real Madrid has been in for him, but he's not. You and I are not looking for him to come to our teams to come in. We'll take Van Dijk, and as much as we talk about his status right now, but we would take a prime Van Dijk or whenever that was. So yeah, I think for Konate, it's almost like the other players. Like, it's just we have those iffy moments, but I don't think it's anything that Holland. It was more bad on Holland for missing the pen, but I think it was something that was coming,
Yeah.
and yeah, well
Yeah,
deserved from him.
absolutely. I think it definitely was coming. And then Gonzalez with the goal at the end of the first half there, I think just kind of put the nail in the coffin for Liverpool. I mean, long range strike, a little, obviously a slight deflection on it, but If you don't shoot, you don't score, right? I always say this, teams in the low block, you just have to put shots on target. You know what I mean? Because any slight deflection, changes the
It
outcome.
it, it
So,
changes it.
but before that goal, I think it was before the goal where the Van Dijk header was disallowed, right?
Yeah, the Van Dijk header. What did you make of that?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the exact ruling is, because if the exact ruling is if you were in the eyesight of the goalkeeper and you're offside, like you kind of obstruct him from seeing the ball, I don't think Robertson was in the eyesight of Donnarumma. I think he had a clear view on the ball,
Hmm.
but he did make a movement which you can argue puts the goalkeeper off. If Robertson's not there, I still don't think Donnarumma saves it, to be honest. But I mean, it's one of those where I think it's tough, right? Like, I think it's a subjective decision, and I think, if you question 10 people, you're gonna have probably 5 people say one way, 5 people say one way, or 6 and 4, or whatever it might be. So, I don't necessarily have a problem with it because I think it's interpretation.
Yeah, I remember earlier in the season, you remember the Crystal Palace one with Chelsea with the wall, where we kind of learned as we
Yeah,
went, like we talked about it. Yeah, it was something similar. I've seen it happen to us before as well. I think against Liverpool. But yeah, it was kind of 50-50. I agree with you. I don't think Donnarumma saves that at all. I do think he was in an offside position. I don't think he was in the goalkeeper's vision. I don't think the goalkeeper saves it, but I also think he was in an offside position, and I could see why they would give it. It's a bit harsh. Like I would want it for my team, but I can also see, like you said, it's very 50-50. It's I'm kind of in the middle of I could see it either way. If it happened to my team, I wouldn't be wanted to obviously get the goal, but I also wouldn't be fussing because it's one of those I
yeah,
would have changed the game. So I'm sure for Liverpool fans, it's a bit tough. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it's 50-50. I could see both sides of why.
yeah.
I'm more on, especially after seeing it happen. I guess I'm more on the disallowed side, I would say, because I've seen it before, and I would say it's a bit more consistent. I've seen it happen consistently, so I could be okay
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, I mean, I flip-flop. I flip-flopped a few times, to be honest. So that's
Hmm.
why I say 50-50. Like, I can see it given, I can see it not given. Ultimately, I think it's the proximity for me, maybe a little bit,
Hmm.
leaning towards the not given side. The proximity he is towards the goalkeeper and the fact that he ducks, like, not even a yard away from the goalkeeper, maybe a little bit more leaning that way, but 50-50. I can see it given, I can see it
But
not given.
I think the only argument that could kind of just make it kind of like clarity is because even now, like a deflected pass is still offside. Back in the day, if the defender intercepted or something, it's a new play. So I think with the deflected pass still being offside, it's easier for people to accept that it's offside
Yeah,
because the player is in an offside position, if that made sense. So I think, yeah, that's why I lean more to that side, but I could see both sides. The only thing, like I
yeah,
said, is because I've seen constantly that offside, like the deflected pass or whatever, being offside. So that's why I think as a whole, we'd be more okay to accepting that, which we've seen. Like, I don't think there was I didn't see much talk from Liverpool fans about it. Not like, it would have changed the game, but yeah,
yeah. Well, Doku got his goal at the end, and I think he was phenomenal in this game, and I think even Pep,
yeah.
kinda spoke to it, but he's had a good season. I think we even talked about him very early in the season. He was looking a little bit more sharper this year, and, he kind of proved it this game. He has, I think, something, and it almost reminds me of, like, Hazard, where he has that touch close to his body and that sharp change of direction that I don't think there's a defender in the world that can defend against it because it's just so insanely quick. I
Yeah,
mean,
he's
he
so
sells
quick
the
as
the
well.
shoulder drop and then the quick the other way. I mean, it's you and I know, like, when you have the sharpness and speed and you can just sell just a simple shoulder drop and a change of direction the other way, it's impossible to defend against. And I think that in world football, I think that there's no other player that has that, over him. I think he has that perfected right now.
Just brings that creativity to the game, right? He kind of is that kind of player, like we said. And I think one of the main thing that I've seen from him as well, I watch. I don't know if you've seen his interview on CBS. I think it was last week when they played in the Champions League. But he's just saying that he's been, since the start of, I don't know how long it's been, because I know TT was Belgium's assistant manager, but he says TT's been helping him be a bit more decisive with his run, being a less more pointless. Because, I think for dribblers, it's like TT was saying it. I used to be a dribbler, how when we played, it's sometimes you start and you don't know where you're gonna finish. And I think if you start and have a goal in mind, it's easier to. And I think that's what he's doing now. As you can see, he's not just in the side where he used to be in the edge of I would say not even the edge, but the side of the 18-yard box where he's over there doing, 50-step body fakes and stuff like that. He's doing the body face, but he's doing the body face at the edge of the box, and it's leading to a shot at the end. It's not just leading to him getting through a player. So being more effective. We've talked about this as well. We've seen so many technical and creative players over the years where it's great. It used to be great on the eye, but now because especially with football becoming so close at every level, you don't have to just be technical, but you have to be effective. So I think he's finding that balance this season, like we said, adding goals, assists, and stuff to his game. And you touched on it. We've seen it. It's very difficult to defend a lot of body. The basics of the game is all you need. When we get older now at the young level, you think you need all of that. But the basics of the game is very difficult to defend, especially with a player of his power and flairness. Yeah, I think what a performance from him that day and what a performance it's been this season. It's been a joy to watch it,
Yeah.
seeing just some, especially nowadays with the type of wingers we have. There's a lot of wingers that's not as creative. Yeah, it was a good performance from Jeremy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that kind of rounds off the match week. The table's kind
Hey, you know
of
what's crazy? Hold on, before we even round off, I forgot this crazy point. You know what's crazy about even in that game, what we didn't even touch on? City doesn't have a great defense. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like I know they scored and stuff like that, but even with being 3-1, City doesn't have a great defense. So it's almost like even shows how much more concerning it is for Liverpool, the fact that City doesn't have what we would consider a top four even defense. Like we know how good Pep is, and like you said, doing the basics of playing center back and moving the ball around. But on paper, I think, defense, midfield, the whole City team offensively is a lot better than defensively. But I think Holland 13 goals and then the next person's one, So like as a team in general, I think it's even more concerning the fact that Liverpool was so easily beaten on the day. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good point actually, and I'm glad you brought it up because I think we kind of said, Liverpool didn't really create much, and they did have one good chance. I think Gakpo when he came in, the ball was crossed across the box, and he just kind of skied it. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if it was 2-1 at that time. I think it was, but
2-0.
that's the only 2-0. Okay, yeah, 2-0. Sorry. Um, I don't. I think that's the only chance I recall Liverpool creating in that game.
Yeah, they were poor.
And I mean, I said, when Ekatike came off, it got even more worse, just because they didn't have a focal point. The City
Yeah.
defenders were just sitting around doing nothing, And you look at that back line that City started that game with and finished with the game with, essentially was Nunes was right back,
Mm-hmm.
center back was Diaz, I think, and Graviol, and then left
Yeah.
back was
Guardiola.
O'Reilly.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at that defense, and I think if obviously you as a Chelsea fan, if Liverpool or if Chelsea's playing City and they come out with that back line in the starting lineup, I think you'd say we have a good chance to get a goal or two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the concerning thing, like you said, is Liverpool didn't create a single chance, and no Rodri either to protect that back line. Gonzalez was in there in the
With the
center,
most
and then
expensive forwards as well.
yeah, with the most expensive center attacking mid and forwards, and just concerning. I think Salah was, a ghost. Every time he got the ball, he just seemed like he didn't know what to do with it. He didn't know where to go or what to do, what to create. And then, Bernardo Silva and Gonzalez in the center midfield, I think, if that starting lineup started against, for me personally, and I think you too, against, Chelsea or Arsenal, I'd say we should have a decent chance against this City team, right?
Yeah, at least get some couple goals, a goal or two with especially the caliber of players that they have. So yeah, it's definitely
Exactly.
concerning.
So I think, for Liverpool, that's a concerning point. I mean, their whole season is concerning. They have 6 victories and 5 losses, and 11 games in. I think it's hard to say that they can turn it around and win the title I know it's very, very early on, but 5 losses, 11 games in, I don't know if we've ever seen a team come back from that and win the league. So I think we'll definitely have a new champion this year, just based off of that alone, whether that's Arsenal or City or I think I was looking at the Opta predictions, and I think they even gave Chelsea a good percentage in there too. Whether that's any team other than Liverpool, I don't know who it's going to be. I obviously hope it's Arsenal, but concerning start for Liverpool. And I think at this point, I think that they should just focus on getting victories by any means necessary, really. I think you have to start grinding results out. And I think we sometimes look at Arsenal and talk about the handbrake and everything like that. And I think would it have helped Liverpool if they were a little bit more defensive in this game? I don't know, maybe. But, you know, big big games at the top like this, I think you always have to focus on not conceding, right? If it's a point, it's a
Yeah.
point, but just focus on not conceding. And conceding three to City, who is a title rival, is not a great sight.
Yeah, I think it's like we said, especially with the summer that they've had and with that back line, just not even creating on the day is a lot. It's a bit worrying. So we'll see. Brings us
Yep.
into the prediction. Obviously, they need to pick it up. But yeah, it's, like we said in the defeat to City, it's testing times for slot. So it'll be interesting to see because that's why the big managers get paid the big bucks. I can't see it at the moment, but it's my first because we don't have enough sample size. Like we said, we didn't see him last year have too much struggle. For me, I'm just have to watch from the side, I think, and see how it goes because it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess we can do the predictions now. International break and all. It's gonna be a long one. Not really much to do. I think that there'll be some interesting storylines in terms of qualification for a World Cup and whatnot. But we'll jump into the predictions, and hopefully this week flies by. At least 2 weeks fly by. We get to go over the Premier League again. First up, Burnley, Chelsea. What are we feeling?
Away at Burnley in the morning, 7:30. Well, it's at 12:30 for them. So I'm gonna go the international break. Let's go 2-0 Chelsea or 3-0 Chelsea because I didn't go 3-0 last time. I think we can beat them 3-0.
All right. I'm happy you changed it because I was thinking 2-0. 2-0 was kind of in the back of my mind for that one. I think Chelsea should win comfortably. It's interesting. I think Chelsea have this kind of like, sometimes these teams like Liverpool when they played Burnley struggled to break them down. I think Chelsea break down those teams easier than some other teams, if I'm being honest. Watching them this season, like I'm not going to put Wolves in that team, but beating Wolves 3-0, I think is a good scoreline for them. I actually think Chelsea are leading the league in expected goals, so I definitely can see Chelsea
It's
getting some goals there.
I think this season I can agree, but it's crazy because from Chelsea's point of view, like we talked about, those are the games that we probably worry about the most. We're okay with losing, obviously, but those are the games like with Sunderland and stuff that we probably drop some of the craziest points, and it's not because the teams are better than us. It's like you saw it with Brighton. I forgot we lost to Brighton as well, but not necessarily the teams are better than us, just a lack of maturity. But I think this season taking out Wolves out of it, obviously. But even with Wolves, because Wolves was a low block, I think as you expect, we're growing, but there's some signs of growth and signs of 5 steps forward and 50 steps back at times. So we shall see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, next up we have Bournemouth, West Ham, and I think that this will be an interesting one. Bournemouth obviously coming off that loss, that heavy loss, and West Ham coming off of 2 back-to-back victories. I'm leaning toward Bournemouth on this one. I think most people would, to be honest, but I can see it being like tight and cagey, and I can see it being wide open, which doesn't really give much prediction in it, to be honest. But I'm gonna go 2-1 Bournemouth, and I can see it being a 3-1 Bournemouth possibly too.
Yeah, I think that's a good result. I think Bournemouth has to win, especially, but I have a feeling in me I'm gonna go for something. I'm gonna go for a 2-2.
Okay, I like that.
I think West Ham is yeah, West Ham's growing. I think they have some beliefs. Yeah, I think it would be a 2-2 or 1-1. I'll stick with 2-2.
All right, there we go. Brighton, Brentford. Interesting one, big one. I want to go
Hmm.
towards Brentford on this one. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think this one can go anywhere. I think Thiago versus Welbs. Welbs just had a good start. We talked about him, I remember. This is at home at the Amex. Let's go. I'm gonna go the opposite of you. I'll go 2-1 Brighton. Brighton Munich.
All right, I'm I'm gonna go 2-1 Brentford. Next up, we have Fulham, Sunderland. Another interesting one that I think you know, will be sort of difficult to make a prediction. I think it's easy to kind of go towards Sunderland, but I think Fulham, need points. I'm gonna go 2-1 Sunderland on this one.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go 2-1 Fulham on this one. I think at home Fulham has to pick up points. And I mean Sunderland's been doing great, but those are the kind of teams that, leveled together. So we kind of see different. We saw what happened with Brighton the other day. So
All right. Well, an interesting one. Next one is Liverpool Forest, and based off of recent form, I think makes the prediction very interesting, right? What
yeah.
are you leaning towards?
I'm leaning towards Dyche making it very difficult for them to score, and with them having trouble scoring so far, I don't know, but it's at Anfield, and we've also seen Dyche team scored a couple goals, so I'm going for a 1-1, a 1-all.
I'm gonna go 2-1 Liverpool. Um, I don't know. Liverpool at Anfield, I feel like, they'll have some time off to recuperate and maybe Isak will get back in there, fresh start after the international break. I think that they can pull off a victory. I'll go 2-1. Next up we have Wolves Palace. What are you thinking?
Wolves just got a new manager, so that new manager
Who
bounced
who's in for them?
someone from I honestly can't tell you off the top of my head right now, but he wasn't there for the Chelsea game because the under 21 coach took that game over, but he should be there for that game or he should be in the job at the moment. I think
Rob Edwards.
yeah, the championship leader. Yeah, yeah. I remember it was a big thing because he's leaving for a team that they think is gonna be a team that could probably get promoted, but he's leaving to come to a team that looks like they're getting relegated. Rob Edwards. I'm gonna go. Still not early enough time for him to work. I'm gonna go 2-0 Palace.
Okay. I'm gonna go 3-1 Palace.
Okay.
Next one, big one. Newcastle City. What are you thinking?
3-1 City.
All right. I agree with you. I'm gonna copy on that one. I think 3-1 City. I think Newcastle will stay on 12 points. It's gonna be they might even drop down depending on some of the results at the bottom around them, to be honest. That's gonna be interesting. Well, that moves us into that Sunday. And it's Leeds Villa. I mean, I think it's hard to do anything but Villa in this one.
It's at home for Leeds though, so I think
Yeah.
good, good.
I don't think it changed my mind, to be honest. I'm gonna go 3-0 Villa.
Okay. I'm gonna go 2-1 Leeds. I think Leeds has to kind of pick it up. I think it will be a good game. Villa has been good, but they've shown signs that they can lose as well.
All right. Well, that moves us into the North London derby. Big game, I think. I think it's honestly a bigger game for Arsenal than
Yeah.
Spurs, just because coming off of that draw and City obviously beating Liverpool comfortably. I think it's
And there will be pressure on you based on the City result too.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so
If City win, they move within a point. So
hmm
I don't know, man. Tough one to call. Arsenal is home, so I mean, I think I'm gonna give it to Arsenal, but you never know. I mean, you never know with the North London derby how it goes. But I think based off of well, Spurs' away form is I think probably the best in the league this year.
is better. Yeah, better than their home farm for sure.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm gonna go 2-1 Arsenal.
Yeah, I'm thinking 2-1 Arsenal as well. Spurs have to score. They can offer as little as they did in the previous games, in the previous first half versus United and Chelsea. So I think it has to be to Derby. They have to be up and ready for it, at least get a goal. Could be anything else,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, and I think another thing is Thomas Frank has always given Arsenal problems when he was at Brentford. I think that he has a good idea of how to set up against Arsenal. Obviously, he has, a little bit higher quality players, so we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited to watch that one. I think it'll be a good, interesting game. And then to round off match week 12, we have United Everton at Old Trafford. What are you thinking on this one?
I think this will be a good game. Two good teams at the moment. Finding, Everton coming off that with victory that we just had against Fulham, and then United just gaining confidence each week as they play. I'll go for I don't think Moyes is gonna let him get away that easy. So I'll go 2-1 United. I think it's a lot small scoring games this weekend.
Okay. I honestly was thinking 2-1 United or 2-0 United, and I've already copied one of your results this week, so I'm gonna go 2-0 just for the sake of not copying it. All right, well, that kind of rounds off this pod. Match week 11, the predictions, international break up next, man. So, um, Will be a quiet week. Right. Obviously, no Premier League, but I think we'll put together an episode, maybe a little bit shortened episode. We'll see how it goes. Just kind of reviewing the season so far. Just something to do over the international break. So yeah, any closing remarks on your end?
No, that's it. Thanks for joining us this week and hope to see you guys again next week.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening.